Hi everyone, it's Kim from the Shamrock Quilt Studio, and today I've got a video for you on our Miss Karen project. Now I recorded this a little while ago, and I'm going to be super honest with you. My microphone wasn't plugged in. So instead of having to do it all over again, I'm going to use our overhead video to show you exactly what I did, and I'll put a voiceover with this. But what we're doing today is we're using some freezer paper to take the pattern for the center of our design, the little medallion in the middle, and we're going to take freezer paper and create a template where we can create that center piece. So I'm going to go over with you how to make the template and how to cut the fabric and then fold it over with our starch basting to create this. And then this will be the center of this medallion. We still have a couple little pieces in the middle, but this is an economical way to make this piece for our top. And especially since we're only using this particular shape one time. So I hope you enjoy the following video, and I'll try to do a voiceover that captures what we did in the video adequately. And I'll be back after the video. And today we're working on our applique project, Miss Karen. And just to remind you, this is a pattern by Erin Russick that we are using for our design today. Now, on our design, we are making the center scallop circle that goes on here. And how I've chosen to do this is to take 2 sheets of freezer paper, just regular freezer paper, and I have ironed them together with the shiny side facing the paper side and then a shiny side attaching to a paper copy of our pattern. The reason I'm doing this is because this is a really large piece for our applique, and I'm going to go ahead and cut while we talk a little bit. And we've been using the heat-proof mylar for our templates, but we only have to make one of these. And it, like I said, it is a larger piece of the pattern. And instead of using the expensive heat-proof mylar, we're going to be using the freezer paper method. So the 2 pieces of freezer paper, they are wax coated, or they call it plastic coated. And that plastic coating serves as a little bit of an adhesive. It melts and it sticks together. Now I use like a warm iron somewhere in the middle, not as high as I would use for pressing or ironing cottons, but warmer than I would use for an expensive silk blouse. So it's just enough to stick them together. And this is kind of a curvy thing, so it's taking me a little bit longer than I thought to cut it out. But we're going to use this as our pattern to make this applique piece from, because of course it will be less expensive than using the heat-proof mylar. And once we do it one time, we won't need it again. So I don't really see the purpose in using the mylar. If you really want to, and then later on you can cut out pieces from the inside of this if you don't do it again. Don't use that shape again. Okay, we are almost there. I'm sorry this is taking a little longer than I thought. Okay, that's it. Now you could choose to glue the paper piece on the paper piece, the paper side of the freezer paper, and then have one side for adhering it to the fabric. That's another choice that you might use, or you might just cut one and use the shiny side to adhere to the fabric. I didn't do that. We'll find out if that was a mistake in a bit. I don't think it will be. I think we're going to be able to work with this. Let's cut some of those strings off. That's my vacuum cleaner's favorite friend right there. She says sarcastically. And I'm going to cut a square probably about 3/4 of an inch bigger in both directions. Okay. Now, because this is a scallop shape, we are going to have to do some fancy trimming to get it to work. And I think the best thing to do is just go ahead and trim it about 1/4 of an inch all the way around. And I'm going to put, a couple of pins in here. And I tell you, that's not the easiest thing in the world because 2 layers of freezer paper is pretty dang stiff. Okay, I've got one side in. You have to kind of pick it up and bend it. So we've got that pinned on. And then I'm just going to roughly trim this up about 1/4 of an inch. I think mine is a little bit bigger than 1/4 of an inch. I chose to do this pretty much all in its own show because it's going to take a little bit of time. And this was one thing I didn't want to have mostly done and then just show you a little bit. Because I think if you have problems with any of these shapes, it's going to be in this or in the big petal designs here. Okay, so we've got that trimmed up. Now mine's a little bit bigger than 1/4 of an inch. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our starch baste and we're going to pull all these corners around these curves. Now, where the curves are an outward arc or a convex arc curve, you won't have any problem with that 1/4 of an inch. But when they come into the concave section, you're going to need to trim that even closer. And I think we're going to go ahead and put a couple more pins in. It'll be easier for me to handle that way, as long as I don't catch my fingers on those pins. So on these concave areas, we're just going to trim them a little bit closer. I think I've got 2 more. This should be the last one. Okay, and I think you can tell that what we've got now is a really drastic curve from the outside to the inside. And that's what we're going to be working with. Now, we're going to have to clip those concave curves to get them to fold in appropriately. And I always say that it's easier to clip them before you get them wet. So I'm going to put 1 clip in the center, and then 1 on each side. And I'm going to do 3 to start off with. And we're going to see how that goes. So we've got this one, and this one. And we're going to start here and just add some of our starch solution. And this is about 1 to 3 or 1 to 4. And we talked about that a little bit before. It's nice if it's really starchy because it will hold it so well, but it also makes it really stiff. Okay, so we've got, oops, I missed one. We need to do 1 more here. You need to be able to handle it. And I like them to hold their shape, but I don't really like them stiff. Okay, so we're going to start here. And we're going to start pulling those in. And I have completely forgotten to plug my iron in, so let me get that started. Surface. And I'm going to shift this over just a little bit. While our iron gets hot, we're going to keep pulling these in place. And then once it gets hot, we'll start pressing. Now I only clipped 3 of them because I really didn't think I could manage to do them all at the same time. So I made it a little smaller area to work with, thinking that that will help us. And we're going to start here on the inside and start pressing. That is not hot yet. We're not going to come all the way out because we're going to want that to be a little gentle curve. And I think we're going to find that the paper is a little more difficult to work with than the mylar because it is going to want to, what would we call it, absorb the water, and then it won't hold its shape quite as much. But if we work in small sections, we should be able to mitigate that a bit. This iron is still not as hot as it normally is. I'm just going to hold it a while. I've really had a lot of fun working on this Miss Karen project. I sat down yesterday and put some more of the vines onto the background just to kind of get a little bit ahead of things, because I typically only show you one section and there's 4 on this design. So it was really kind of fun to do that and be able to see the overall picture of what's coming together with that. Okay, it's finally gotten warm enough that it's drying up that damp fabric. And you can see now how this is taking on the shape of the pattern. Let me slip that on there. You can really see that now. So we're just going to keep going around. I don't want to leave that under this to get wet. We need to clip. So I think we're going to do 2 more and just clip our way around. And be sure that you don't clip into that pattern, into the drawn line on it. You just want to be really close. If you do clip too far, you can always use a little bit of fray check to keep it from fraying where you clipped it. I would advise that. I don't find that wall hangings get washed very much, so that would be an advantage if that were to happen. That it won't be something that gets thrown in the washer and dryer every week or 2. But you still don't want it to fray on you, and I think the fray check is probably the best way to do that. I am currently out. What I had left in my bottle looks like it is drying up, and it is no longer effective in coming out of the container. Now, another thing you could do is you could use some pins to stick through this because this is paper and not mylar, if that would be helpful to you. Okay, let's see where we are. Okay, you can see those are holding their shape. Okay, so we've got what? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 done. We've got 2 more to finish up, so I was going to speed up the video, but I think we're so close, we'll just do them real quick. Just clipping those 3 little clips in each concave curve. And I'll wet those first so they can really get the effect of that starch. And then I'll come back and join up the outer pieces. And I always like to give them just a minute or so to absorb that liquid. I find that the more it's absorbed, the better job it has of both forming over your template and staying there. And you're going to want to fold them over and then just pull them slightly so they give you a nice, neat curve over your template. Some of these areas where we've clipped, we are super close to the edge. So just so we're aware of that. Now I'm going to flip it over and make sure the other side is completely dry, and that will kind of ensure that we hold our fold where we have it. Our shape will stay consistent. And when you make your little wax paper, not wax paper, don't use wax paper. When you make your little freezer paper template, you're going to notice that it's kind of wrinkly almost, where it's bonding together in some places and maybe not in others. I don't really know if you continue to iron it long enough if that would go away or not, but it's not going to affect your fabric that you're putting on there because we're not even using the wax part in this. Now I have one area where my clip is at the edge, and I think it's just because it's worked its way back. So we'll put that on. Okay, that's better. There's one more right here. So we are just about finished with this. Okay, now if you were concerned about the clips being too close, you could always at this point take a little bit of fray check and go on the back side and just dot it where those little clips end back here. That might be helpful. I'm not entirely sure it's needed, but it may be helpful. Now let me grab the little piece that goes in the middle of this. Okay, now this piece we worked on the other day in one of our other videos. And it's not going to be exactly the way it's going to be, but it will be close for us to see. And that's what the center of this is going to look like. Now we do have a couple of circles that need to go in here. Kind of gives you an idea of what the medallion in the middle of the design is going to look like. I don't know exactly how this series of videos is going to actually come out being posted, but we have created vines, we've created leaves, we created the little buds. We have worked on these petals, and now we've worked on this scallopy center. What we need to do is we need to work on the flower pieces, and that would be these three pieces right here. So we'll probably do that. Well, I know we will do that in the next video that I shoot, and it more than likely will come out after this one, because the scallopy piece and the petally pieces, particularly the flower pieces here, are going to be the most difficult because they have these really strong centers here. So we'll need to work on that and be able to find a way that we can turn those and get exactly the look we're looking for. And like I said, I've worked on some of the other, putting some of the other vines on, which I need to go in and stitch down, so we can work on this a little bit more. Well, I think that was a pretty good video that kind of shows us how to create this scalloped circle for the middle of our medallion. And I did not want to waste that film, so that's why I chose to just do the voiceover and walk you through what we did instead of refilming it. I just didn't think that was necessary. And you're still able to see how this is done. This is some of the techniques that we've been using all along. It's just, like I said, a more economical way to do it with the freezer paper as opposed to the heat-proof mylar. And it really went together exceptionally well. I'm so glad that you were able to join us today. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll be back next week with another video on the Miss Karen project. We'll see you then. Bye.